This next stage of the bull market is going to be the most critical time for many new investors. A lot of people are scheduled to come into the cryptocurrency market during the final stages of any bull market. That is how the system works. And so during this period, a lot of money is going to be made and a lot of money is going to be lost. Make sure you're on the right side of those profits. And that's what we're going to look at in today's video, my overview of strategies that I'm looking for in this next quarter and potentially into quarter one and quarter two of 2022. Now, these are theories and techniques that I share with my members in Patreon and in the membership course, which you can find a link to in the description down below if you're wanting to join us. So in today's video, I'm going to go through some of the strategies and a brief overview of what I think is coming up in this next quarter. So make sure you smash that like button and destroy the subscribe button because you can always unsubscribe later. It is a free, risk-free investment to click those links down below. Let's start with cryptocurrency market caps. And this is important because we're seeing where the money is flowing and how beefed up the industry is getting. I'm also going to cover some other strategies that we've seen before in terms of altcoin phases and then get through some charts as well. So the first thing here is $54,000 BTC, and ETH is beginning to climb back to its previous all-time high, yet again getting closer to that $4,000 level. And that, of course, is bringing in a lot of activity and huge greed into the market. Looking at the greed, we are at 76 yesterday and 74 today. So looking at the chart of the fear and greed, we're getting spicy again on that greed index. And you know what has happened in the past when we get to those levels between that 70 and 80, you can see that we tend to have a bit of a pullback. We need some sort of cooling off in the market. Now, if we are spinning all the way back to earlier in 2021, we just shot straight up into the 90s and hung around in those 90s for quite a period of time before we started to make lower highs and then dump back into those levels of the teens to 20s where it was good buying again. So take note, this is a bit of hopium-filled video today, whereas generally we're more hopium-free, and this is where the hopium-free comes in. It is getting spicy. Try to keep your socks and your shirts on before things get too crazy. All right, so onto the charts and Bitcoin USD, just having a look at where we have the potential of going, just a bit of a roadmap. It doesn't mean we're going to get there. It doesn't mean we're going to be a $200,000 or $300,000 Bitcoin by September, even though it's October, but we'll leave that one for another day. Looking here, we're trending more towards a 2013 type of cycle. And I think many people are probably in agreement with that at this point in time, especially as we're seeing a big blow off or a big move up and then a rounded top and then a fallback of around 54%. So previously, 2013, we had a peak of around $260 and then a drop back to around $60 before we took off to our final high, getting closer to that $1,200, so around $1,160. That gave us a percentage range between top to top of around 350%. If we were to get a top to top 350% again for Bitcoin, that is going to take us from around 65,000 to around $280,000, probably closer to around 300,000. Do I think it's possible this cycle? Probably not. And I'm classing a cycle to where the next big peak is until we get another correction of probably 40 to 60% at least. Maybe we'll go further, but we'll see as we get closer to that point in time. But if I'm to take a more conservative approach and say maybe we're going to get half of that distance, instead of the 350, maybe we get around a 150 to 200, then we go top to around 150%, takes us to around that mid $100,000 range. Now, I've talked before about we may only get to around the $110,000 to $120,000, and that's going to give us about 100% from the previous high. So I'm going to play it a little more conservatively just to bring the hopium back in terms of my strategy and thinking into this next quarter of the market and potentially the first half of 2022. I'm also looking at the dominance to give me an idea of when will we get these life-changing profits from cryptocurrency trading or investing or trading into NFTs and that sort of thing. Well, the dominance is still up. We are finding a little support on around the 43 to 44% after bursting through 44 and closing slightly above 45%. So if the Bitcoin dominance continues up, then we've still got some more time in the altcoin space to be making some of those gains. Now I'm going to be looking at the Bitcoin charts, the Bitcoin pairings for anything that I'm investing in during this next 3 to 6 to 9 months of the market. And the reason being is the risk is so much higher in this next stage of the market. And the risk is higher because a lot of cryptos have already run. We've seen some lows and we've seen them start to run again. So they're starting to get closer to their peaks. And should they explode and blow up and start to dump, or the market becomes extremely illiquid in the case of NFTs, then I don't want to be left holding those bags. So although there is potential to make big gains in this next stage of the bull market, I want to also be able to walk away in this bull market with a good ton of profits, even if those returns are lower than what I could have received playing the NFT space. So there is that option as well. I want to be conservative with some of the portfolio, and I want to go and start playing the markets with a small percentage of the portfolio, because we can really start to see things ramping up. As we've seen with the greed, it's just getting really hot, bringing the hopium back down. Let's see if we get a little bit of a pullback to find a better entry. And this hopium is going to continue until we get an ETF approved. And it doesn't look like the US is going to not approve something. Gensler has talked about ETFs coming out. Hasn't said when, but some are calling for this month, actually, looking at October as a potential for an ETF approval. Gensler struck a similar tone in an August speech that ignited a rush in tailor-made Bitcoin futures ETFs filings. None have been approved by the SEC, but industry observers expect decision as early as October. So that could be another catalyst to send us shooting off to the moon. Of course, Bitcoin will take all those gains, and then the altcoins will start to bleed. So I want to walk away with some good profits in this next stage of the bull market. Chainalysis also shows that cryptocurrency is being adopted all around the world, with their list of Vietnam being the highest scorer at the moment, India coming in second, Pakistan, Ukraine. United States is pretty high up there as a developed nation. And of course, we also see South Africa, China is still in there, and all the way down to Russia a little further down. So it's still being developed or adopted pretty heavily across the world. And that's something that we didn't see so much in the 2017 bull market, which means we could get multiple major peaks with sizable corrections in between and potentially long periods of time. Now, what am I going to be looking for in this next stage? If you aren't familiar with my channel, I do look a lot into trading cryptos, and I like the DeFi space. The NFT space, of course, that is probably going to be the hottest, and I would even argue to move the NFT into the bigger circle and throw DeFi just out on the edge. Polkadot ecosystem obviously goes off. ETH killers go off. Scaling solutions, because of the Ethereum gas fees, they tend to go off as well, and these all move in cycles. Now, the least fun out there in the markets are data, privacy, and identity. It's not to say that they can't pump, but if you are looking for those huge 100,000x returns, they're probably, compared to NFTs or the Polkadot ecosystem or DeFi, they're probably not going to be found in the data space of privacy or the identity. So I look at this, and I've seen this happen before, and I would suggest, if you are looking for those massive returns, then probably focus your attention on this upper end of the narrative, the pumpable narratives, rather than the other end. If you find yourself finding cryptocurrencies which are in the data space or the identity space, they might not be the pumpable cryptos that you're looking for, and you might waste this final or second final stage of the bull market. Look for the pumpable stuff. Now, I focus on the BTC value because, as this little infographic here states, a lot of influencers online, you can throw myself into that basket if you really want to. I am here online. A lot of influencers will only look at the USD value, and the USD value will go up, and they'll say that they're doing a fantastic thing. His favorite influencer says, we're up 20% talking about this cryptocurrency. But in reality, it's gone down against the BTC value, which means that Bitcoin is rising and all tides are rising at the same time. But those cryptocurrencies are just moving up slower than Bitcoin because they're just a weak crypto. So really pay attention to your Bitcoin value if you want to make the most out of this next stage of the bull market. That's part of my strategy, looking at the BTC values. Now, NFTs are obviously crazy, and I put a post out on Twitter. So if you want to follow along, subscribe to my Twitter. Links are down below. Mechaverse is something that's absolutely crazy at the moment. It hasn't even come out, and the floor has gone from a 0.2 ETH up to approximately 6 ETH at time of filming this video. So they haven't even come out, and people are bidding far, far higher than what they have been minted for. So NFT is obviously going to be crazy, but again, it's pretty much just like leverage trading. You can get burnt super, super hard, but at least you have a JPEG to walk away with that maybe no one wants. The other part of the narrative is, of course, Ethereum, and I think Ethereum is going to pump. So if NFTs are too risky, then Ethereum is a safer bet, in my opinion. Of course, there's not going to be the same sort of gains that we would see with NFTs, but a lot of NFTs are being minted on the Ethereum blockchain. So of course, Ethereum is going to be burning a lot more ETH because of these NFTs that are being minted and traded. So ETH being burnt means there's less ETH, means that the supply is dropping. And at the moment, there is still a lot of demand for Ethereum. So I can see that rising the price a fair bit, and probably more than what Bitcoin is. So it's kind of that safer bet to anything else, and probably a bigger gains than Bitcoin. Now, this is all, of course, speculation, but this is the way I'm playing this next stage of the bull market to make these bigger gains. Maybe this is the last opportunity until we get a massive bear market. Looking at Mechaverse on OpenSea, where you can be buying these, the floor price at the moment now is 4.6, so it is changing quite rapidly. And you can go down the list here to see any Mechaverses which aren't even out yet, with bids of 3.6 ETH, 3.9 ETH, and then we just sort of hit 4 and onwards, 4.2. So you can go onto OpenSea and just start to get into that NFT space. So my strategy is split between two different types of portfolios: a longer term, something safer, and then getting out to the gambling space, because part of my strategy is to make sure I walk away with profits at the end of this bull market. It's been 4 long years between peak and the next potential peak. I don't want to waste it, and I hope you don't either. So make sure you've got something written down and you're following a plan to walk away with profits. You don't need to sell the absolute top or buy the absolute bottom. You just need to come away with some profits for your time. Remember, you're spending your time researching NFTs, DeFi projects, trading, storing your cryptocurrency, learning about cryptocurrency. Walk away with some sort of profits to make this a long-term endeavor for yourself. And I did ask you guys earlier if you wanted to see a video about how to take profits. And I have put that video out on the channel, and you can find it just a couple of videos back with the title, Important Crypto Exit Strategies Revealed. I'll leave a link to this at the end of this video so you can get an idea of my thought process into creating a plan for exiting the cryptocurrency market. Now, if you did want to learn more, of course, there is also Patreon as well. Link to this is down below. But let's look at Ethereum. And Ethereum USD is slowly climbing up. So with all of this positive news, we're still getting those moves in ETH. Where can we go in terms of the ETH price? So I've got some targets further up around that $8,000 to $12,000. Now I've got around 8,000 because, again, it's very, very conservative. It's about 100% from the previous high. And if we do a round number of the previous high of approximately 4,400, that brings us out at about 8,800. So if we throw another 100% on top of that price, we come out at around the 13,000. So a smaller, narrower target of between 8 and 12,000. That sounds pretty good to me. And if I look at it in terms of returns from where we currently are, then at 3,600 to get to that 8.5 to 9,000, I've still got about 100, 150%. Now, if that doesn't sound great to you, 100% maybe in 3 to 6 months, then you need to start getting riskier going into those lower market cap cryptocurrencies, which is what we also look at on the channel as well. But in terms of my strategy, I want to be buying, or I want to be holding more Bitcoin and ETH at the end of the cycle than what I started with. That's my strategy. I want to make sure I get to that point, and I'll be implementing some of the things that I've talked about in this video right here. We've looked at a lot of things in today's video. We're looking at the bullish narrative for the major cryptocurrencies based on a lot of the smaller projects which are finding their ways into the market for people to earn their massive returns. The NFT space is kind of like the ICO space of 2017. It's really just built on hopes and dreams. They are just JPEGs at the end of the day. Sure, they might be rare JPEGs, but what is stopping someone else creating a new project which sounds just as fantastic with the same fundamentals and better images? That's what it is at the end of the day. It is a bubble and it will burst at some point. We all know that, but like in 2017, the market just kept running really hot, further than what we could expect. And ICOs kept going off. There were bigger hopes, bigger dreams, until we just couldn't match those hopes and dreams by the end of that stage. And then, of course, the bubble burst and Ethereum was down approximately 92%. So I'm going to be on the lookout for something like that to happen again in this cycle, with the NFTs being the narrative, which is why I may not invest heavily into NFTs, but I definitely keep a track of them, because that is going to give me an idea of what the market sentiment is leading into this final stage of the bull market. Now, in terms of a chart, I'm looking for something similar to what we saw in 2017. I don't know if we'll get the exact blow off top like we saw in 2017. We did have a few 100% between the previous highs, but it is starting to shape up very similar to what we saw in 2017, where we had a peak and a big correction and another peak, and potentially we get another correction, or we've just seen that correction before the market just takes off, huge steam comes, because we have gone through a lot of pain at the moment, and everyone will believe that the pain won't happen again because this time it's different. And that's where I'll leave today's video. We will recap more about the strategies leading into Q4, and of course during the period of Q4 in the markets. Nothing is ever different. It is always the same. It smells the same. It looks the same. It tends to move very similar, and it will repeat itself. So make sure you are on alert for those things. And if you catch yourself saying, this time it's different, we got to go into a massive super cycle, or Ethereum's just keep getting burnt, it will never come down, that's when you really need to be fearful of your own thoughts. With that said, that's your Hopium-Free for the end of a Hopium-filled video of the massive bull market coming. Make sure you've hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you on Patreon, links down below, still 70 spots left. And I'll catch you on Instagram and on Twitter. Till then, have more fun to get more done.